2023 Summers County Board of Education regular meeting. Let the minutes reflect that all members are participating with 4 members present and Mrs. Farley dialed in on the line. I'd like to ask Mrs. Harvey if she would to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we have item 3, approval of agenda or adjustments.
I would like to make a motion that we pull the principal position, deal with it separate from the rest of the personnel.
I'll second. Okay, we have a motion by Mrs. Harvey, seconded by Mr. Brogan to pull the principal, when we get to personnel, the principal
This
for
meeting is being recorded.
Summers County Comprehensive High School out separately. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? The minutes reflect by a 5-0 vote that the agenda has been adjusted to pull Summers County principal out separately in personnel. Any other adjustments? Were there any bills you needed out?
There's none.
Okay. I didn't think
I'll make a motion, we approve the agenda as read with the aforementioned adjustment.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Brogan, seconded by Mr. McBride to approve the agenda as read with the one mentioned adjustment. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? Minutes reflect by a 5-0 vote that the agenda has been approved with one adjustment. Item 4, presentations. The first one we have is Panorama Customer Survey. So we have with us, I will let you all introduce yourselves. We're going to try to take this laptop over to the screen. Let me get the.
And Mr. President, everybody should have a hard copy. It's a color copy. It looks like this of their PowerPoint slide in case it doesn't work.
Can you hear me by chance? Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right.
Nope, not you, Renee, sorry.
Okay, sorry, I didn't know.
No, it's all good. Just trying to get the audio joined here.
Hi, Greg.
Okay, hello. So I'm gonna plug this in and we're gonna try to get you on the big screen for this presentation. All right, Jay. My part's done, I plugged it in.
Hey, Chad, usually if it's HDMI in the front, it works better. Is your HDMI plugged in the front of the screen there?
Yes, it is, yes.
Then I think you need to recognize that on the screen that it's in front.
Oh, not right here. Let's see. So. Okay, I'm sorry. That's all right. So we are not going to be able to put you on the big screen, but I am going to turn the volume up and we will try all listen.
They just texted me, Mr. Angel, and they said, it seems like you're muted. Can they hear you? Can you check?
Yeah, here we go. Okay, how's the audio now?
You hear you now.
Okay, so we were trying to get you on one of the larger screens in the room, but we were not successful with that. So, thank the board members, and Mr. Warble can hear, okay, but it's not real loud, so you may have to speak up just a little bit.
Perfect, sounds good. And Greg, do you want me to start now, or do you want me to wait?
Yes, now's fine.
Okay, perfect. Hi, Summers County team. It's really nice to finally meet everyone. I'm sorry about the Zoom technical difficulties. It's never a Zoom meeting without any difficulties. But my name's Satashma. I'm part of the outreach team here at Panorama Education. Really excited to be in front of you and to share a little bit about Panorama survey tools today. But yeah, I was hoping for our time today. Jen and I will do a quick round of introduction, and then we'll dive right into Panorama, share a little bit about what Panorama does, but also diving a little deeper into Panorama surveys. And then we'll leave some time at the end for some quick question and answers. But yeah, please feel free to reserve any questions for the end. Yeah, thank you so much for your time today. Before I jump right in, I'll also quickly introduce my colleague Jen. I'll actually pass it on to her. So Jen, take it over.
Hi team, great to meet you. I'm Jen Chesky. I'm on the outreach team along with Satashma. I'm a former educator, both elementary and middle school. Here really just to be an extra layer of support, to answer any questions. If you want to throw anything in the chat, I'm happy to monitor the chat as well. But yeah, with that, pass it back to you, Satashma.
Awesome. So I will quickly share my screen with the team so I can walk you through a little slideshow presentation that I've created for you. I know David also was printing that out for you and the team. So I'm hoping that you also have access to this, but if not, I'll send it over to you as well after this meeting. So I created this presentation really after conversations with David and hearing a little bit about some of the goals that Summer County has currently in alignment to Panorama's tools. So right before I jump into our survey platform directly, I'll just quickly walk you or give you a quick introduction of Panorama and also the different buckets of work that we're currently involved in. We've been in the EdTech space for 11 years now, and from the start, our mission has really been to radically improve education for all, and an emphasis on all because we really want to make sure we're not just supporting your students, but also our teachers, our staff, as well as our family members who are all part of the school community. And as of right now, we're serving 2,000 school districts across all 50 states and serving 15 million students each year. And these are just some of the buckets of work that we're currently involved in. 11 years ago, when we started as a company, we were really focused on elevating stakeholder voices when it came to important topics like school climate, family engagement, teacher-student relationship.
Just trying to get a little more volume.
Data when it comes to both teachers as well as students' social emotional learning competencies. So with that in mind, we created our SEL surveys that are, again, research-backed, CASEL-aligned, reliable, valid measure of SEL competencies. And you have access to the surveys, not just for students, but also teachers. When we presented these survey tools to our initial clients, some of the most common feedback we heard was this data is great, but this data alongside a lot of other key data points, including academics, attendance, behavior, all live in silos. So with that in mind, we created our whole child dashboard, which we call our student success platform, which also serves as our MTSS dashboard, where we pull all of this information in one place, create interventions and monitor student progress all in one place. And then finally, and more recently, we also launched Panorama for Positive Behavior. This is our two-part PBIS tool. The first part of this tool is our app that really encourages teachers with behavior-specific phrasing, but also makes behavior incident logging a super simplified process. The other half of our PBIS tool is our desktop dashboard that really helps with behavior incident management, but also provides the analytics behind the who, what, where, why, when it comes to behavior data. So those are the really 4 buckets of work that we're involved in. I know based off of the conversation I had with David and some of the goals that the district has, I know there's a big push for social emotional learning, but also a great need for culture and climate surveys. So with that in mind, we're going to be focusing our time today just talking about our feedback surveys and our SEL surveys. But at any point after this meeting, if anybody wants to talk to me about student success or Panorama for Positive Behavior, happy to put in another time to talk about that as well. So I'll begin here by talking about our survey platform. Our SEL surveys, which are research-backed, CASEL-aligned, is designed in collaboration with Harvard Graduate School of Education, and our lead researcher, Dr. Hunter Gilbach, really worked with his team of researchers to create a tool that is reliable as well as valid measure of SEL competencies. Now, when you partner with Panorama for any sort of surveys, you have the option of choosing from a plethora of different topics. Right now, we're looking at all the different student survey topics that are available within Panorama Education. You can see those topics are distributed across SEL competencies, climate and culture topics, as well as well-being topics. I'll just give everybody a minute to look over all these different topics in case any jump out to you at all. And also be quick to mention, I know these are a lot of different topics that are available, and a lot of our partners want to run a lot of these topics. We typically recommend our partners choose anywhere between 4 to 7 different topics per survey, because that really amounts to about 10 to 15 minutes of survey respondent time. So this is our student.
What was that number again?
We typically recommend 4 to 7 different topics
Okay.
per surveys. Yep, that amounts to about 10 to 15 minutes per respondent.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, absolutely. And these are just our student survey topics. We also have our teacher and staff topics available. We recognize that it's important to also measure teachers and staff SEL competencies, because they're really the ones that are supporting our students with SEL. So with that in mind, we have SEL and well-being topics for teachers or staff. We also have culture and climate topics for our staff, as well as equity and inclusion topics. I'll just give you all a minute to also look over these. And in this presentation that I've sent over to David, I've also included these links that are user guides to all our surveys. So you can access the links here, and this will show you all the different survey topics that are currently available within Panorama survey tools, as well as all the questions that would come underneath every topic. And then finally, we also have our family survey topics. Coming out of COVID, we heard from a lot of different partners that family engagement has been a huge concern, but also a huge challenge. And so with that in mind, we created our family surveys really to understand better some of the barriers to engagement for families. So these are some of the family-school relationship topics that are currently available as well. And when you choose anywhere between 4 to 7 different topics, like I mentioned earlier, underneath every topic is a menu of questions that would come underneath every single topic, and you have the option to really customize those questions. So if there's certain questions you don't want included in that particular survey, you always have the ability to eliminate those questions. And if there are other customized questions that you really want to add to our surveys, ones that you don't already see within the questionnaires that we already have, you absolutely have the ability to also add those questions to your surveys. And I'll quickly also touch, in terms of accessibility, there are a few things that we currently have. Our surveys are available in 15 different languages at the moment. If there are languages outside of these 15 languages that you also want to have this translated, we can certainly work to make that happen for the team. We also have a section where if the team wants to have open-ended free response questions that you want to ask either your students or your families, you absolutely have the ability to customize those questions as well and ask those questions. Oftentimes our partners will choose to do this to have that narrative data alongside that hard data, so that is also absolutely an option. And all our surveys are accessible on any internet connected device. So these are just some things that we do to promote accessibility of our surveys. Now, I've taken a screenshot of what our respondents would be looking at or how they would receive our surveys. So every student will have their own login credentials that are sent over to them. They can just click on that link, log in with those credentials, and this would really take them to their survey platform. And here is a quick screenshot of how the students would be looking at their surveys, whether that's in a desktop platform or a device. So that's just a screenshot to show you. And again, all our surveys are online based, accessible via mobile phones and tablet devices. And again, there are several different languages available. I'll also add, we have our surveys catered to different developmental age groups. So we have K-2 students who are very young and probably won't be able to take their own surveys. So for them, we have teacher perspective surveys. From 3 to 5, we have a different developmental stage survey, and then so forth and so on. So we make sure that our surveys are developmentally appropriate for all the students. And once the results are in for our surveys, this is how an administrator would be looking at our survey results. There's 3 levels of visibility that you would have when you're using Panorama Survey Platform. The first visibility, and one that you're seeing on the screen right here, is the district summary. This is really used by our district admin team across all our partners at Panorama. So the central office team, our district leaders, are really looking at this to understand the high-level trends that they're seeing across the district when it comes to these survey topics. And district summary and school summary are very, very similar in terms of the view that you're seeing right here. The only difference being our school summary is catered towards our school administrator who would just be looking at their school's survey topics and how the school is doing in all those different areas, whereas the district would be looking at all the schools and all the topics that would come underneath. So right here on the left-hand side, you see different topics that you and your team have chosen to measure your students on. So these are all the different topics. Right next to it is a percentage favorable. So this is really the composite score for all your students for all these different survey topics. Right next to the percentage favorable is comparison to the national data set. So with Panorama, we're serving 15 million students across all 50 states. So we really would be able to compare your survey results to the 15 million data set that we already have in our system. And then right next to it is also changes since the last time you've taken the survey. So we really want to make sure that our surveys really show you after each time progress over time. So any sort of increase is a reason to celebrate. So right here next to the national comparison is also those changes since the last time you've taken the survey. So this is at a glance what you and the team would be looking at when you're looking at the survey results. And again, I've also included this slide just to share a little bit about what those percentage favorable really means, what compared to others means, as well as changes since the last time you've taken the survey. And then the last view that we have, so we have the district level view that we've covered, the school level view that we've covered, and finally you have the student level. The student level is really used by our classroom teachers as well as our school counselors and psychologists who are dealing with individual students. So for an individual student profile, this is the result that you'd be looking at. So each student, the student that we're looking at here is Oliver. This is Oliver's SEL results. So you can see all the survey topics that Oliver's taken a part in. as well as how the student has ranked all these different topics, as well as changes over time. So this is the last time Oliver took a survey. There's been a 0.3% increase, which is always a reason to celebrate. So being able to really see individual students and how they're doing across the board, and then being able to really provide those real-time supports to them with this particular view. And finally, right as you are looking at those survey results and identifying areas of growth and areas of improvement, and you're trying to think, okay, where do we begin this taking actionable next steps? This is where Panorama's playbook really comes into play. So with every Panorama partnership, you have access to what we call Panorama's playbook. Panorama's playbook is our online professional learning library with 700 plus interventions, strategies, tools spanning all MTSS tiers and all developmental stages. We really created this resource thinking that we don't want our educators to have to reinvent the wheel from scratch. We would just create a resource for them that they could pull from to create any sort of interventions or support for students in real time. When we initially created this resource, we were really focused on SEL interventions and strategies. So we worked with some of the country's top CASEL-aligned curriculum providers that you see on the screen on the right-hand side here. We worked with all of them and pulled in all the different strategies and tools that they have included in their curriculum. And we've created that SEL intervention pool within our Panorama playbook. However, more recently, with partner feedback, we've now created a more robust tool that includes strategies and tools, not just spanning SEL interventions, but also spanning academics, attendance, behavior, family engagement, culture, climate. So these are tools that are always available to you and the team, and from which you can always pull these different information points. So this is really a way to take that actionable next step once you've identified the data, the different areas of strength and areas of improvement in your district. So that sort of covers very briefly Panorama survey tools. I'm open to taking any questions or answering anything or clarifying anything for you.
How many? Hi, this is Megan. How many schools do you currently work with? And how many of those have you retained on a regular basis for repeat surveys?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we currently serve 2,000 districts. There's definitely a long list of schools that we support. Jen, do you by any chance know the number of schools that we serve?
It's over 2,100 districts. We serve over 15 million students across the country. I know that our renewal rate is very high in the high 90s, but we can definitely gather those statistics and the most recent statistics and send them your way.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Most participants are concerned about privacy. How do we guarantee that?
Jen, would you like to speak a little bit?
Totally,
I
yeah.
mean, a lot of people want you to know their opinion, but a lot of people don't. So.
That's a good way.
So are you asking about data privacy or privacy on surveys, I guess is what I'm.
Privacy on participants of the survey, basically.
The response.
Anonymity.
Yeah, so we can set up surveys. You have the ability to create anonymous surveys or confidential surveys. So if it was a survey, for example, a student survey where you want to track the SEL competencies to be able to provide next steps for those students and address those needs, you could create those surveys where it would be tied to those particular students, but you also, have the ability to send out links so that, a family survey, for example, is totally anonymous. It's not tied to any particular email, so people feel very safe to answer questions. We also have a validity and reliability report that we can send your way. Our surveys are all research backed, as Satashva explained. So not only with the survey design, but then, our content, parts of the survey design, the way that questions are posed, the fact that they are questions, not statements, as well as responses rooted in a frequency scale versus an agree, disagree, a Likert scale, help, ensure those valid and reliable results. But, as I mentioned, we have a very high response rate. Or renewal rate rather. We work with our partners very closely to suggest best practices. You have a support team that's dedicated to you and assigned during the partnership. They walk with you lockstep throughout the partnership. So they can definitely help with best practice for these types of questions that come up, engagement, all of these types of things. But happy to, share more if that didn't answer your question. Also happy to share I thought maybe we were talking about data privacy. Happy to share our privacy policy as well with you, because we do take student data and all of that, the privacy issues along with that very seriously.
Okay, thank you.
Looking at the slides that you provided and looking at the result, simulated results. So if you look at the first one, under growth mindset, it's 68%. Nationally, it's 80 to 99th percentile, and it's up 4. Is there also a place, rather than just selecting one of the 5 options, to enter free text as well?
So are you asking about besides just the hard data, if you have a way to look at what the stakeholders are saying, like in like a discussion section?
Well, so if we go to the survey taking experience slide.
Oh, yes.
Let's look at that one. So how often,
Yep.
First question, how often do you stay focused on the same goal for more than 3 months at a time? So there are 5 options to choose from, but
Yes.
if someone wanted to maybe there was an extenuating reason as to why they chose the option and they want to elaborate on it, does the survey give them the ability to do that?
Not in the question itself.
Okay.
We certainly have a section where you can ask those free response questions, saying you can elaborate more about any particular question, or if you just want to ask a direct question that asks, okay, what were some of those circumstances, then you can certainly generate those free response answers.
Okay. And then as far as the cost associated with this, is it an annual cost, and then we can use this however we need to throughout that 12-month period, or is it per survey that's taken? How does that get billed?
Yeah, that's a great question. So all of our partnerships are annually billed,
Okay.
and you pay one fee, and you're able to really utilize our surveys however regularly you and the team want without any additional fees.
Okay. And what was that fee again? I know we have it in the documentation you originally provided, but that's been several agendas ago, and I didn't pull it up before this meeting. Do you have it in front of you?
No. Yeah, let me just quickly pull that up actually for us.
Okay.
Any other questions while I pull this up?
Yeah, while you're pulling that,
answered my question.
while you're pulling that up, who would you say is your competition for this type of product?
Yeah, that's a great question. We definitely have several competitions. There's a lot of different tools out there measuring social emotional learning competencies. While that being said, I think something that makes us stand out compared to a lot of our competitors is our research backing. We have gone through an extensive reliability validity testing that not a lot of our competitors have. Also, we have that Panorama client experience. So the minute we sign a contract, you have a project team dedicated to this partnership. So we're really holding your hands and supporting you throughout our partnership. This is not a one and done deal. We will work with you to identify what are some of those survey topics that you and your team want to measure. We'll help you with any sort of way. We also have an exceptional teaching and learning team who are all former educators who really work with you around professional development. So those are all things that really make us stand out compared to a lot of our competitors. Jen, anything else you'd like to add to that at all?
Yeah, I'd actually say there's definitely companies out there doing different types of stakeholder surveys. There are companies who are doing different sorts of measurement for SEL, some being where it is aligned to CASELs, others where it's really more aligned to behaviors. I would say, actually, we don't have a large list of competitors who do everything that we do and kind of combine those two things. So that is also how we stand out, as well as the customization. So being able to choose the topics that align to your school district, your particular goals, your students, and staff, and then being able to change those over time as your goals and needs evolve. We're right there along with you. It's not a set boxed, survey where you're giving that same survey out year over year and you can't change it at all. So while we do have competitors, there's different types of survey providers or different types of SEL curriculum providers, which we're not, but we offer that measurement tool. We also offer the tools and resources with the playbook. I think we are unique in that we can kind of offer all of these things in one tool.
Okay.
And just quickly, I checked our proposal, and our total cost of that is $9,500.
9,500. Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay. Well, I want to thank you for your presentation, and if we have any other additional questions, we'll send those to you through Mr. Warville.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Bye. Bye.
Bye-bye.
The recording has stopped.
Okay. Next item on the agenda under presentations is Greg Mentor and Cindy Wilson.
Jen, do you know if they're going to be here at all? Okay.
Okay.
Looks like we'll get them next board.
Let's
meeting.
just put
Kinda
that,
like
yeah.
What happened with Mr. Pugh, right?
So we'll place that on the next board meeting agenda. All right. Well, then we'll just hand it off to Mr. Pugh for new school.
Yep.
Back to this jump drive one, so I can pull up the PowerPoint.
You want him?
There is, but it may be like mine.
Okay.
You want to use yours or not?
Well, if it'll play up here, that would be better probably.
See what we can do. Might use this computer.
Okay.
If we get even better luck. Wonder, can he directly into that? And he might right into it. Try.
Hey, Greg.
He just stepped away,
Greg.
trying to get another presentation working.
I couldn't hear what happened with Mr. Mentor and Miss Wilson.
They are not present.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. I was hoping I didn't have you muted through that whole presentation, Renee.
No.
I'm going to move the speaker up here close to Mr. Pugh so you can hear what he's
There we go.
Walk back and forth. So I'm Derek with New School Scholars. It's hard to believe that another school year is come and gone. I'm here to present some data to you guys again. So thanks for taking the time to hear and see kind of the cool things that your kids are doing here in Summers County. So one of the programs that we'll start off with is the credit recovery that we were running through the 9 through 12 here at the comprehensive school. So we had a full-time staff member here Monday through Friday for, I think, right around 4 hours. Rachel Bragg was here running credit recovery because we were still playing catch up from COVID and people being lacking credits and that type of stuff. So I'll jump right into this, and I emailed the hard copies of these PowerPoints, so we can share that. Mr. Renee or Mr. Warble can share the hard copies with you guys, because it really dives into the meat on some of the other slides, like the Excels, as opposed to just like pie graphs and charts and that type of thing. So that way you all can see the actual numbers and what we're looking at here, okay? So the first one, the 9th grade, was not really one of our main focus, because we have several years to catch them up still. So we were really trying to focus in on those 11th and 12th graders. That was that critical. You either recover this credit or you don't graduate. And a lot of the kids that we're working with, if they don't recover that credit, they're probably, the likelihood that they drop out skyrockets if we keep them here any longer. So out of these 2 students, you can see the 9th grade, the first 9 weeks, 4th 9 weeks is what we compared to. So we didn't have anyone with any A's, I think 1 B, 1 C, but we increased that. So we took our initial GPA for the 9th graders that we worked with. Again, it's only 2 students, but we took it from a 1.2 GPA to a 2.42. So you can kind of see we started the year with 40% Fs, reduced that to 25%. And you can, one of the cool things with this one, even though there's only 2 students, there's 0 green in this first 9 weeks, meaning that none of these students had any A's coming into it, and they ended up with 42%. So kind of cruising on through the 10th grade. Again, it's not one of our main focus. Again, we have time to recoup them. Sorry, mine in the way over here. So you can see we took it, not much growth on that, but 2.23 GPA increase, still trending in the right direction with a 2.38 GPA, reducing the amount of Fs, increasing the Ds because those Fs probably flowed into your Ds, and then the Cs reduced, which jumped up to your A's there, because again, we went from 31%, 15% of A's and B's, and then jumped into 46% with A's on that. 11th grade, which was more of our focus, 14 students. Now again, these are just 14 students. Now, there's a slide later on that really shows how many credits that we attempted and we recovered, because even though it's only 14 students, they were recovering and shooting after multiple credits. So that first 9 weeks, we had 46% A, 34, just flowing down, 34% B, 16 C, 11 B, and 14% were your Fs. GPA was 2.47. Finalized that GPA at the 4th 9 weeks, again, trending the right direction with 2.56. So you can see the pie chart that kind of breaks down where the flow is of those, increasing again your A's. And I always kind of look at that F. So we actually increased a little bit, went the wrong direction on the F's with that, by 0.2% on that. Reduced the D's, increased the C's, and the A's and B's is still trending. 12th grade, 17 students. So these were your rock stars right here. The 12th graders really knocked it out, because again, that was our primary focus, as I said earlier. So our GPA was 1.88 at the beginning of the first 9 weeks, or after that first 9 weeks. Conclusion of the 4th 9 weeks, they jumped huge jumps to 2.43 GPA. So you can kind of, I don't need to read all the numbers. Are you guys able to see all those? Okay. I don't want to read all of it to you there, but you can see like they were your highest performers there. We really fed them a lot. So I was super proud of this chart here. So this is all of your students combined. So grades 9 through 12. This has all of your different grades, so 174 different grades that we were looking at. 2.14 GPAs where we started, 2.48, and again, the A's really increased there. And I'll accredit this to not only the credit recovery, but the after-school tutoring program as well. I think all kind of was hitting them from all different angles on this.
What explains the difference between the total of 174 in the first 9 weeks to the total of 170 in the?
Yep, so someone just like withdrew or dropped out that we were working with in that first 9 weeks. And there's
Does that
a slide.
account for one person or
Yes.
4? Or?
Yep, so one person on that. So the different grades that they were working on those. And you'll see, I'll jump down here real quick. So when we look at this, so this lists all of the different students, and that's why I highlighted this number 22. Student number 22 is what they're listed as on here, but they were missing 14 credits. Well, they got 0 credits, and like they're just an outlier, so we omitted that data because it was just, like, I don't know if they like withdrew or dropped out, or I would imagine they probably dropped out on that. We can go back and check with administration, maybe this is can help me with that, and I can kick that name over, but it's like something is super off with that for them to be missing 14 credits, not complete any, or make 0 progress whatsoever with that. So that's why we kind of highlighted that one there as like they're an outlier. So 9th grade students, 2 credits were missing, and then the 0 were completed. So those 9th graders didn't do a whole lot with that. Your 10th graders, 7 credits were missing, 4 credits were completed, 3 were still remaining. So meaning that out of those 2 students, they were missing 7 credits, right? So they got 4 of them finished, 3 of them were still missing. So, you know, if we're doing this next year, they will flow into that junior year, and that's when we will attack those 3 remaining credits with them to get them caught back up on grade level. So they recovered 57% there. Your 11th graders, out of those 13 students here, 35 missing credits, 31 were completed, so we are missing 4 credits out of the 35 that were attempted by your juniors at Summers County, which is a whopping 89% of completed, which is super great. At some point in time when we're doing this data, I hope that we can just kind of stay baseline, because that means that we've worked, your students and teachers and everyone involved has worked really hard to maintain that, and that we're not missing credits to start the year with. So super cool right here. Your 12th grade, out of the 17 students, they were missing 51 credits. So out of those 51 credits, 50 of those credits were recovered by your seniors at Summers County. So that's a 98% completion rate for the credit recovery program that we were running every day here at the school. So to me, that's super good data. So this is your combined grades out of the 34 students. 95 were missing credits, 85 of those were recovered. So you have students sitting in your building that had failed, 95 classes basically, and we recovered the credit recovery with that for 85 of them. So an 89% completion rate, which is only leaving us 10 credits to catch that cohort of the 9th grade that's coming through, 9, 10, and 11, because your 12th graders are gone. So, so not much to catch up on, which is good. All grades, so you can kind of see it broken down by your all grades, which is kind of like that. And then I need to figure out how do you go back? Well, I mean, back to I need to open a different one. You know how to do that?
I think it's that one, yeah.
Right there. Back there. So what I want to jump into now are part of the data from the elementary programs that that we ran, the after-school tutoring program. So we kept data on them. The first one I'd like to look at here is Jumping Branch, their academic results. And I have it's not included because I got it a little bit late, but I have the strategic plan data that I can kind of read to you. I don't have any visuals for that for Hinton area, and then we're still waiting, Mr. Nate, for Talcott Elementary. But some of the cool, great results again, Jumping Branch, they worked really hard on this. So the way it's broken down here is the beginning of the year math proficiency results. So you had, out of the after-school tutoring program, there were 9 that participated at Jumping Branch. I think there were 14 to 20, 14 at Talcott, and I think right around 20 that participated consistently that we were able to track. It was a little bit difficult, as Ms. Susie can tell you, at the high school because it was an open door policy kind of for them. So if they wanted to come on a Tuesday, they would come on a Tuesday. If they didn't come back again for another 3 weeks, then they would show up on a Thursday. So it was extremely difficult to track at the comprehensive level, but I would say consistently had, 40 kids at an evening, I would imagine. Would you agree?
Close to 30 for the most part.
30, okay. So typically, when I would get the payroll to come pay the kids, because this was the paid program, we paid them $5 every day that they attended an after-school tutoring program. It was usually around 60 ebbed and flowed a month typically. So now that means they may have only attended one day, but on average, we pay around 60, 65 kids every month at the high school. But getting back to jumping back to Jumping Branch, we had at the beginning of the year, 1 student exceeded the math standard on that beginning of the year math proficiency. 1 student met the standard, 3 partially met, and 4 did not meet the standard. So after a year's worth of after-school tutoring, in conjunction with all the other great things that they're doing at Jumping Branch, when they were assessed again, 3 students exceeded the standard. So that's an increase by 33%, or 34% there. The standard, 2 students met the standard, which was your 22%. Partially meets the standard was 3, and then did not meet was 1. So we reduced the did not meet the standard by 3 students. So all of that is, again, trending in the right direction. The English language arts, beginning of the year, exceeded the proficiency. We had 0 students at Jumping Branch exceed the standard for ELA. We had 1 meet the standard, and we had 3 partially meet and 5 not meet the standard, which was 56% of those 9 did not meet the standard. So after, again, everything that we were doing with them, the teachers were doing, we had 1 student exceed the standard, so an increase by 11%. 3 students met the standard, 4 partially met the standard, and only 1 did not meet the standard out of the initial 9. 5 didn't meet it before, 1 didn't meet it at the end of that 4th 9 weeks. So, so again, great job to the teachers and administration there. Any questions on Jumping Branch? And then, like I said, I didn't have any, I'll have to read kind of the data that was sent from Hinton area, just because I didn't receive that to get it plugged in here. So on second graders, we have 5 second graders at Hinton area, and this is again in the strategic plan. In the ELA PALS, beginning of the year, 0% of those second graders were on grade level. At the end of the year, 75% were on grade level. And 100% of those initial 5 students showed growth in 2 or more reading levels from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. So again, Hinton area Ms. Gums doing some great things there. The ELA for the 3rd graders, we have 9 3rd graders, 7 4th graders, and 1 5th grader. The beginning of the year, 0 were proficient, and the end of the year, 82% were proficient, and 18% partially met the standard. which is 47% showed growth of 10 or more scale points, and 29% showed growth of 50 or more scale points. So as Ms. Renee or Ms. Jones can tell you, that's pretty good growth there. The math, beginning of the year, this is grade 2, so we have 4 students in that. Beginning of the year, 0 benchmarked. At the end of the year, 50% benchmarked, and 75% of those students improved by 10% or more. So even though some of them did not meet the benchmark or meet benchmark, they still were progressing and moving in the right way. 16 students in tutoring for grades 3 through 5. 100% of those 16 students were below standards at the beginning of the year. At the end of the year, 0% met or exceeded the standards, but 12% were at partially meets the standards. So she broke it down even more, and 76% showed growth of 10 or more scale points, and 47% showed growth of 50 or more scale points. Students attended at a rate of 40% of the sessions offered. And it seemed like Ms. Gum put specific notes in there that she felt like it was extremely beneficial to the students that they were offered this program, and she felt like the data kind of represented and spoke for itself, and is in hopes that this can continue in the future. So, but that's kind of like a breakdown as to what we've done. Once I get Talkit Elementary, I will plug this in, and now that I have this, I can plug it in, and I can send some updated data points to you guys. And again, like I said, we can share, we'll fire that out to you guys. That way you'll see kind of the raw data also, not just pretty color charts and pie graphs and different things. So you'll get to see the actual raw data and what it was composed out of. So, questions, comments, concerns on anything?
So the students, so you had an instructor or a facilitator here
We did, yes, sir.
Monday through Friday, 4 to 5 hours a day.
Correct.
Did you have a facilitator at any of the elementary schools, or was that just after
That
school?
was after school.
Okay. The facilitator that was here, was their primary focus just credit recovery?
That was solely what they did. Now, we would go to the elementary because we did some social emotional stuff at Hinton area, did some different groups for them, ran some different groups for various elementaries, but as far as academic components, that was solely after school tutoring.
Okay. And so that credit recovery, just my curiosity, what does that look like? What does that person that you have here do? Do they meet with the student?
So they do. So we have
Look
kind
for
of a
struggling
classroom
areas?
setup. So
Okay.
what we would do is we would pull them out of their, I'll call them flow classes. So
Yeah.
something that is not your English, math, science, social studies, something that's required. So we pull them out of art, or we would pull them out of, something, an elective of some sort, was not fit, or VOTEC rather, not your vocational programs here. But, so we would pull them out, and they would stay with Ms. Bragg until they completed their credit recovery, then they would flow right back into that class.
Okay.
Is how it worked. And we kind of tag team some of the, because you all have like a credit recovery, something here, right, Ms. Susie? Yeah. So we would even pull them from that, because a lot of times they would maybe just get put like in the, I think space was fairly limited, so they would be in the auditorium, and so we would pull them out. And the kids that were really struggling, they needed that individual, more intimate type of a setting to where the teacher could really assist more in depth. Because they're hard.
Yeah.
Credit recovery is hard.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Anybody else? All right.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
For your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, let me grab the speaker.
Okay, great to hear. Thank you. Yes, sir.
All right, the next item under presentations, we have employee testimonials. I think this was related to, we'd asked for anyone who wanted to come in and talk about
Dr.
Edwards' work that's been done. I know we received some emails and what have you.
I didn't know if you had anybody that wants to speak about it, or,
I think they sent in their.
Email and,
emails
yeah.
or-
Did everyone have a chance to read those?
well, with the Invest conference, it's taken quite a few people.
Yeah.
So,
Also in their
Yes.
folders, I did put in an evaluation sheet from last year's summer teacher academy. We had Dr. Edwards here 2 days that week, and, our staff could choose to attend or not attend. So I included that in your folder.
Okay. Did everyone have a chance to look those over and read the emails?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions or comments about any of the items we received? Okay. Next, under presentations, we have David McClure for the 8200 training for the Board of Education and Central Office.
he is also / mentor for Sandra too, so we're just glad he could come here all the way from Greenbrier County Schools. You all should have a 3-ring binder and a colored staple sheet at your hands that he's provided you all. And I won't take any more of your thunder, it's all yours, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Thank you, President Angel, members of the board, for being here tonight. And I'm very familiar with your schools, and believe it or not, I was an intern here and your trainer about 2 cycles ago. So it's great to be back with Summers County Schools. My children play many sporting events here, so I am familiar with this school. As this discussion sort of evolved over policy 8200, I realized that rather than doing a full-length presentation, it probably suited the needs of the board better to do sort of a simple review of 8200 with you today. And we worked exclusively with Mrs. McClung to develop some future trainings and some things that I think will benefit Summers County in the future as far as issues related to 8200. So with that being said, my plan is to do a simple review. I'm glad to answer any questions you have. And then I'll turn it over to Mrs. McClung, and she can sort of tell you what the plans are we've developed to help remedy any situations that may have occurred with Policy 8200. Policy 8200 establishes minimum requirements and procedures to be followed for purchasing, receiving, safeguarding, and disposal of goods and assets within the county school system. And the main reason for 8200 is basically to ensure, because we are using local tax dollars, state tax dollars, and federal tax dollars, that those dollars are expended in the most efficient and effective manner possible. So when you boil 8200, policy 8200 down, that's basically the premise behind it. Just to ensure that we've got the public's trust in the way that the school system is expending the funds that are granted to it. I will say that we did spend some time with Uri Cummings, who's in charge of the Office of School Finance. Mrs. McClung and I were on a video conference with him, and we looked at all the issues around 8200 and asked specific questions. And he provided great relevant information, which led to some of the changes that she's going to be recommending or policies put in place in the future. We also spent some time with your auditor today on a conference call just to make sure that we understood maybe what has led to some previous audit findings and ways to remedy those into the future. I've listed about 5 bullet points. The first one is sort of a summary of what 8200 comprises. The second one is there's really, second and third is there's really 2 components to 8200. The first one is using state and local dollars, your local property tax collections, the state grants that the county receives, the basic state aid formula, and so forth. Those sort of fall under one set of rules, and then the other set of rules deal with the federal dollars that you receive. And I'll just mention that policy 8200 is what Summers County has adopted as your purchasing guidelines. With the exception, this board has actually narrowed the scope down to any purchases of $20,000 or more come before this governing body. So you've actually restricted or enhanced the safeguards within 8,200 even further. And county boards of education can certainly do that. So 8,200 is the baseline, but county boards can evolve and make those even more stringent, in which you have in Summers County. So your policy basically says you'll follow 8,200 with the exception of purchases of $20,000 or more come before this governing body. Basically, it establishes the bid limits when you should be bidding items and what the procurement requirements are for the thresholds. Anything over $5,000 basically requires some form of bid, but those can be in verbal quotes. So between 5 and 10, they can be verbal quotes. Between 10 and 25, they should be written, meaning you can go online and print screens for items. 25 to 50 are more specific actual written bid documents that need to be obtained so that everybody's clear. And then greater than 50,000 is when you get into the legal bidding requirements that you put a legal ad out in the paper and so forth. For federal, actually, believe it or not, the purchases are up to $10,000, but all county boards follow policy 8,200, so it's still a $5,000. But I will mention that the federal purchases don't allow for the local vendor preference or other exclusions to bidding as provided in policy 8,200. As far as blanket purchasing, or what we call stringing, there should be a good faith effort to be shown that the board is obtaining bids for all items that are used in the school system. And it's very, I'll just note, it's very difficult to approve sole source providers. And so Ms. McClung will talk about the solution that she's came up with for that. And then state and local exemptions for bidding. In 8,200, there are several items that are excluded from bidding just because of the nature of the services that are provided, such as accounting, legal, training activities, tuition, utilities, livestock, and court-ordered payments. So one of the things that we've utilized in my county to help alleviate the cumbersomeness sometimes of making purchases is we try to piggyback as often as we can off of state purchasing contracts because the work's already been done at the state level. And we also try to utilize purchasing co-ops where, again, the purchasing, the bidding of those items have already occurred, and it just helps streamline the process. That's 8,200 in a nutshell. I'd be glad to answer any questions you may have about 8,200 or anything that we could.
As far as using state contracts and co-ops, they don't follow, so I understood you say they don't necessarily follow these guidelines because the work's already been done.
Correct.
So what are we required as a county to do if we use it? You all probably know this. I'm asking for my own.
Sure. So again, the state has a division. It's a state purchasing division. They've already, in theory, went out and followed the guidelines for bidding.
Okay.
And they allow other boards of ed and other municipalities to piggyback off the work they've already done. So in theory, they've done the bidding for you. They've stepped in your place, and that's an allowable use of an alternative procurement.
Is there any special documentation that needs done when we use that?
It's already been documented, so you should be able to provide. There's a website with a listing, and it has all the details on items that shows the work that's been done. So if an auditor were to pull a transaction that you've utilized that for, you have the documentation already provided. So we've used that a lot in Greenberg County just because, purchases come up and sometimes you don't have the luxury to go through the whole formal process. So that's an alternative. And we've also utilized the purchasing co-ops very advantageously as well, particularly on the larger items. But again, everything is specific to the need of the county.
Does your county have, like we do, where the board approves purchases over a certain amount?
We allow the superintendent to make purchases up to 100,000, and then after 100,000, it comes before the board.
Okay.
Normally, we try to alert the board of any significant purchases, even if it falls below that threshold. But our board allows us to make purchases up to 100,000 with the superintendent's authority.
Okay. One of the things I mentioned to Mr. Warble today when I talked to him, with our $20,000 limit, we're right in the middle of one of these criteria.
Right.
So if a purchase is $12,000, we don't look at it. But if it's $22,000, we have to look at it. But they both require the same criteria. So one of the things I mentioned was that we probably need to look at aligning, if we're going to keep our policy, aligning it with one of the lower limits on the guidelines in 7-11. That way, if it's a $25,000 purchase, then anything over that will start at the bottom limit of whatever guideline we're looking at.
Right, and you certainly have the authority to do that as a governing body. And you have a specific policy already in place with the 20,000, so you just need to amend it to the criteria.
And I think that would
Select.
That would, as a board, if we're reviewing anything in our documents, then we know here are the items we need to look for. So I think that's something we can talk about during our work session.
I bet Trey would love that since he does all our
Yeah,
policies.
he probably would. It's still included in the cost.
Yes, that's what I understand. Get it now while it's in the cost.
I will share with you, when I was preparing for this presentation, my college-age son, who was in this past weekend, he's been mentoring this summer. He said, "What are you working on, Dad?" And I said, "Well, I'm working on this presentation. I'm going to be at the Summers County Board on their next board meeting." And he said, "What's it on?" And I said, "Purchasing Policy 8200. And he says, "Yeah, that's boring." And I said,
Yes,
"Well, yeah," I said, that subject material is pretty dry. And he said, "No, Dad, your presentation is boring." That's what led me to presentation. So, you gotta love your kids. I'll turn it over to Cassandra, and she can kind of share with you some of the things that she's developed, that we've worked together to develop and hopefully make this purchasing better for some.
Mr. McClure, your son's probably able to get on YouTube, right?
I'm sure he is.
Well, tell him to go on Summers County YouTube and watch you.
Gave him a shout out.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. McClure.
So the first thing I wanted to mention is we do have plans, myself and Adam and Kayla, because Kayla's the one who sees all the purchases once it gets to the board office. So between the three of us, we have a plan of working together so that all three of us know the exact process, what to look for. And then that way it doesn't rely on just one person. Like if one of us is out of the office, the other person knows exactly what to look for to see if those purchases should be approved or not. So we plan on doing a training with all the board office staff sometime in July. We haven't really set a date yet for that because everybody's really had vacations and stuff at the end of June. So at the beginning of July, we plan on getting everybody together and setting a date and having probably a couple-hour training on all the ins and outs of 8200. Adam had suggested we need to look at the processes of how some things get approved, because a lot of things really do need to come to Adam before they make it anywhere else, because he is our purchasing director, so he needs to be aware of them before like they make it to Kayla for payment. So we just need to look at those processes of what comes from who and who it needs to go to in what order and revamp those. So we do plan on working all together with that this summer to make like a clear path of approval. I put together like forms, because sole source has been a big thing for Summers County. Vendors try to give you a sole source letter. According to the state, vendors can't declare themselves sole sources. Our county has to declare them a sole source. So I came up with a form. It is a lengthy form because one of the things that we keep getting docked on the audit is lack of documentation. So a lot of implementing of this is just going to be adding documentation to the process. So it's about a 3-page document to declare a sole source, and then before the purchase gets made, Mr. Coon and Mr. Warble will need to sign off on it, declaring it a sole source before it actually becomes a purchase order and before the purchase gets made. So that way that will clear up that audit finding and not having the documentation for sole sources, because if it goes through all those steps, they have to have reasons to declare them as sole source. And by filling out, a form stating exactly why you're listing them as a sole source, that will give basis for the sole source justification. we plan on putting together bid packets for each group so that all the documentation needed for each bracket of what's needed for each bracket is all together, so whoever's putting that together knows exactly what forms they need. A lot of what the auditors was looking at is just the lack of documentation. It's not that the process wasn't followed, it's just that the documentation wasn't tracked. So putting that all together in a packet with all the information together where the directors can put all that together before it gets to Adam for approval, then Adam can just look at it, make sure it's all together before he sends it on to Kayla for payment. So that's all the trainings at the board office level and implementing stuff before we get back into school. Then once we get back into school, there's a few days that secretaries and principals are back before all staff is back. We plan on setting up a meeting with the principals and secretaries, going over what they do at their school level, because really all purchases should go through the secretaries and principals before it makes it to us, so they should be the first line of defense. So really, if they're looking at what's required, they should be able to deny it before it even gets to the board office, knowing that they don't have the right documentation. So just going over all that with the principals and secretaries in detail, because I think a lot of them just simply don't know what is required. And then as far as general staff, most staff is never going to deal with A200 because the majority of staff don't make purchases on a regular basis. That's why the importance is on the secretary and principal to know the process. So we have the vector training set up online. I think we just need to update that and add some actual questionnaires in there, not just a PowerPoint that they look at, so that they're actually answering the questions. So I plan on working with Karen at the board office to update that before the school year starts, and then that will be one of their required trainings for all staff members. As far as policies goes, I was going to bring up the 20,000 is kind of in the middle. I don't know if you want to go lower or higher, but that is kind of a weird cutoff point, but it's completely up to you guys where you want that cutoff. And then on the purchasing policies, everything looks good except we don't have a local purchasing emergency policy. We probably do need to set one of those up. The superintendent does, if we set up a policy that would give the superintendent authority to declare a local emergency, now this would not be used very often at all, but it would be used like.
I got an example for you. In the school last year, the kids had to stay overnight because of flooding, and I think they had to buy kids all kinds of food and some other supplies. I would consider that a state of emergency. I recall that was this past school year, I believe.
Yeah.
If you guys remember that story, I forget which school system,
It
but
was Lincoln County.
what was it?
I think it was Lincoln County, wasn't it?
It might have been. I just remember there was a flooding and they were pinned in.
Yeah.
And then they had to get them some food, so that would be probably those are the one in a lifetime. I hope that doesn't happen, but
yeah, it's not going to happen very often, but like that, or like if you had a sewage main break that you had to get somebody here immediately, those would be the kind of things that you would want your superintendent to have rights of declaring it a local emergency so that you didn't have to go through a bid just because you need somebody on site or you need to make the purchase immediately. But now you would need documentation and a valid reason. So those shouldn't happen very often. They should be clear emergencies. But because there isn't a policy, I think we probably do need to work with Trey and make a policy just to clear that up a little bit.
So Mr. Angel, work session with Trey.
And then as far as the findings for the audits, so we do have like a high-risk audit. We spoke to the auditor this morning, and he said it was more of a timely manner that pushed us into a high-risk category, not necessarily the findings. Even if there were findings, the findings could easily be cleared up by working closer with the auditor. So I plan on trying to have a closer relationship with the auditor to clear up some of those things before it gets to the finding of the audit. So a lot of the things, if you have a valid reason of doing it that way, it's not actually a finding on the audit. But it sounds like maybe some of those weren't communicated to the auditor before the audit report was released. So just working with the auditor before that audit report actually gets released
to make sure that they're valid expenses and they were spent right could clear up some of your findings. And then it's always a possibility that a different auditor could produce different findings. So when we get into the point of putting out the RFP, once we receive those, we need to look into all aspects of continuing with the same auditor or choosing a different one. Both have positive and negatives, and we can look at that more in detail when we get to that point. Do you have any questions for me?
Suggestion?
Yes.
So you talked about the sole source.
Mhm.
That might be something we want to look at adding to our local policy as maybe an addendum and putting a section in our local policy related to the sole source.
I actually have, this is not proofread yet, so do not judge my grammar, but I have a copy for you guys on the rough draft of this.
I think if we do that, no, I just think that gives us a centralized location where this can be found. And then if auditors are here and they say, you know, what do you do for sole source? You pull out our local policy in there.
I agree, that could easily be added, and I think maybe if we get down the road and we do like actual bid packets, those should probably be added as well. Those just aren't prepared yet. That's on the summer to-do list. It's just not there yet.
And question for Mr. McClure.
Yes.
Does Greenbrier County have an emergency purchasing policy?
We follow 8200.
Okay. I was going to see about plagiarism.
Well, you can
Be happy to share, but
Yeah.
we follow 8200.
And maybe that's something we can do, is see if any of our surrounding counties have an emergency purchasing policy that we could take a look at, get some ideas off of, and then work with Trey to come up with
Would
something.
Uriah Cummings, if we would ask him, he would probably know at least a couple.
Yeah.
Maybe we could ask him.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
The reason, I'll just explain, the reason I brought that up is there were a couple purchases that got cited as local emergencies that didn't follow the process, and they were okay because we explained that. But if we just had like something as grounds, we wouldn't necessarily have to explain that as well. Like, they would just be already stated.
Very good.
Just a couple other comments, just generally, not related to 8200, but Cassandra's doing a great job. I've mentored in several counties, and she's absorbing material very quickly. And so you should be very pleased with that. We've worked to this point to where we feel like we're in a position to close Summers County out. Now, obviously, there'll be accruals and things that'll occur in July and August, so final numbers won't be presented until late September. But Summers is in a really good position now to be able to close the fiscal year out. And then I'll be back down when we do the closeout of the financials. Be glad to present with Cassandra or have her present the financials. But just so you're aware that you're in a good position financially, and Mr. Wrong and I have already talked about the preliminary numbers. So we feel you're in a pretty good position financially. The mechanics of it as well as the position. So
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Hey, you don't have to stay for extra credit.
All right, so that gets us through presentations. Item 5, public comment. We have Ms. Cleo Matthews, Summers County High School principal position.
I'd like to commend the superintendent, and I hope to commend him for putting Dr. Green on the agenda to become principal in our high school. And he is in the system, and he's even been assistant principal here at the high school. And so he knows our people, and he knows our students, and I'm sure he'll do a good job. And I hope the board will approve the recommendation. And then I want to share something with you that I enjoyed when I was active in education. And it's by John Scher, researcher on school change. The future is not some place we are going to, but one we are creating. The paths are not to be found, but made. And the activity of making them changes both the maker and the destination. As you work to improve and evolve this school system, I know that the changes will come and our school system will improve. But also, you will grow in the process, all of you in this room, as the process unfolds. And thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Let me grab that speaker for Renee. I forgot about you over there, Renee.
That's okay.
Could you hear okay?
Yes.
All right. Okay, next item, item 6, approval of minutes. We have the June 13th, 2023 minutes before us.
Make a motion that we approve the June 13th, 2023 regular meeting minutes.
Second.
A motion by Mrs. Harvey, seconded by Mr. McBride, that we approve the June 13th, 2023 regular meeting minutes. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstaining? Let the minutes reflect by a 5-0 vote that the superintendent's recommendation for approval of the June 13th, 2023 regular meeting minutes has been approved. Item 7, approval of bills. We have before us the bills. We all received that in our packet as well as through email. Any questions on the bills? I want to take a minute before we talk about bills. Thank you, Cassandra, for sending out the explanation. Yes, I do, because I did have a few questions. I actually was going to ask you about them when I called, but once I got yours, that took care of them, so.
I told her one of the most successful things she can do is she comes, do you know how to color code?
Yeah.
I think she looked at me kind of weird, but I said, the board really likes color code, and I know I do.
Yeah, yeah, that was very helpful, so thank you. So do we have a motion on the bills?
I'll make a motion to pay the bills.
Second.
Have a motion by Mr. Brogan, seconded by Mrs. Harvey, that we pay the bills. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstaining? Let the minutes reflect by a 5-0 vote that the bills have been approved for payment.
Who seconded that? Megan?
Meg.
Okay.
Yeah, yep. Item 8, proof transfers and supplements. Do we have any?
We do, I just
Okay,
added them
here
to
they
your
are.
packet today, though.
Okay.
There's just a handful, and they're all just, most of them came from the difference in state allocations for the final cost that Warren didn't have. The front page has all of them listed in the description, the rest of it is just the supporting document.
I'll make a motion, we approve the transfers and supplements. Second.
Greg, since I'm unable to see those, I will abstain from voting for these.
Okay. So we have a motion by Mr. Brogan, seconded by Mr. McBride, to approve the transfers and supplements. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining?
Aye.
Let the minutes reflect by a 4-0 vote with Mrs. Farley abstaining that the transfers and supplements have been approved. Old business, discussion or possible action regarding superintendent evaluation. I'll make a motion under West Virginia Code. I have it up here this time. Thought I had it up. Yep, here we go. 9, is it 9? 6-9A4 under personnel, that we go into executive session at 6:24 p.m.
Second.
Motion was made by myself, seconded by Mr. Brogan, that we go into executive session. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstaining. Let the minutes reflect by a 5-0 vote that we will now go into executive session.
All right, so executive session ended at 7:08 PM. We'll call this regular session back to order. Old business, discussion or possible action regarding superintendent evaluation. The board completed the superintendent evaluation. We had discussions, and we will submit the required paperwork to the state. Do we need to take a motion and vote on that to finalize it or anything? I don't think we do we?
No,
Okay.
it's just you and I filling out, sending it to the state.
Okay, so no action. All right, old business B, discussion or possible action regarding approval of MOU with Edwards Educational Services. So we have the contract in our folder. We also have received some different reports back, emails, and what have you. There were also some things put in our folder from staff members regarding Edwards Educational Services. I'll just go ahead and start the conversation here. One of the comments I read that kind of piqued my, I won't say curiosity, but just kind of made me stop to think was one of the individuals indicated that they were good, but they might have been a little more frequently than they needed to be. Is there any ability to lower the number of days or change this contract? Or is that what he's offering up?
Man, he said he'd be flexible if that question came up, and we can adjust the days. So, yes.
Okay.
I don't have more than that unless you do, Ms. Jones, other than, yes, we
If
can.
I may.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
He was going to work the days differently this year.
Uh-huh.
With the new teacher group, instead of meeting with them as a group, we were gonna go to the schools and do walkthroughs in those new teacher rooms. And then meet with them that same day on the planning, so they can have the immediate feedback and coaching. So that was gonna be different. He was still gonna meet with central office staff and principals. And, instead of having a math review team, we were gonna have an ELA review team that would review all of the standards and work that's turned in before it's actually put on the shared drive. So some of the days are going to be scheduled differently, but we can reduce the number of days in the contract.
Well, and you know, I'm not in that arena, so I think it might be good to talk to some of the people that provided comments, and especially those that might suggest that, and see what they think. And I'll let any of the other board members speak.
Greg, could you briefly summarize what Ms. Jones said? I couldn't hear her.
I'm sorry. So he's going to change the way that he's done it from in the past. And I might have to take the speaker to Ms. Jones and let her tell you more, but he's going to change the way he's done it, and working with ELA rather than math. Is that correct? Is that what you? Focusing more on ELA.
We'll have an ELA team.
Okay.
And then the new teachers.
Be an ELA team, new teachers.
New teachers will do walkthroughs in their room and provide feedback on that same day.
He'll do
instead of having
walkthroughs and
them
provide
pull out
feedback
the
that
room.
day instead of pulling them out of the class.
Okay.
Okay.
But we can rework the number of days as well, whatever you all think is appropriate.
This has been, we have had, well, I'll speak for me. So much information coming from both sides of this. We're at a loss of how to fix this, honestly. Well, I am. I keep saying we. I am. But one thing that somebody that's been around a while said to me was that he wants to break down standards. That's a big part of breaking down standards. This person indicated to me that especially our newbies really don't have any idea how to do that, and especially they don't know how to do that and prepare their own tests. And on top of just being a newbie in general, that was just quite overwhelming. Is there any way to fix that?
So did that comment come from a veteran teacher or from a newbie?
A veteran,
So we have a veteran teacher speaking on behalf of our new teachers.
yes.
All of our groups have been voluntary. We haven't forced anybody to join. So I'm not sure where to go with your comment from the veteran teacher.
I can't really say any more than that.
Well, what I can say is out of 50 states, we're a state that's one of the lowest, and out of all the counties, we're one of the lowest. So we have to do something different, and we have to try to make system changes and try to get everybody on the same page. The Invest conference right now and conferences that I've already attended throughout this school year, the state has mentioned numerous times that, we got to focus on the reading, because that's been the big push, and writing. And then now we got math, and that's always been the focus, but now we have some science behind it. With Dr. Edwards coming in, he's getting people to take more off their plate. Instead of, like when I first taught, here's your textbook, Dave. You teach the textbook and get through page 1 through 400. That textbook really didn't help the kids with the standards. It helped with California, New York, and Texas, basically, because those are the big states with the most kids in it. Texas has 10% of the population of the United States. That's just amazing to think about. But the point I'm getting at is we have to have the teachers have a tailored eye when they look at something to say, that isn't even part of my standards. And some teachers don't even know their standards. And that's any teacher. New teachers that come in, since you mentioned a veteran about new, when you come in and you look at all the standards, honestly, if you look at the standards, some of the standards that are asked our teachers to teach in one academic year, considering the bad weather, is about near impossible. So that's why we look at some of the power standards that kind of go throughout their growth as they move through school. That's what Dr. Ed is trying to focus on, is the power standards, but you also have to look at all the other standards you're supposed to teach in a school year, but you actually have to know what you're teaching too. Some people have no idea because I like dinosaurs, I'm going to teach about dinosaurs because that's the history I like to teach. Or I like Civil War, I like that history. But you have to look at what is actually asked of you as a teacher and look at your standards. The other thing is we have to ask kids questions with some rigor to it, because our state test scores, our SAT scores, this is historically, this isn't just today, I'm talking historically, have been one of the lowest in the state of West Virginia. We have smart kids, we have smart teachers. I just think it's a different way to looking at your standards and your assessments, because some of the assessments that are done don't meet the mark. And what has happened is we've had teachers, like the last board meeting, you saw one with color coding. She's a brand new teacher, or newer, and she's realizing that I need to do a better job. And then all of a sudden it makes you more like, okay, I can control my job now. Because what would happen if we didn't have technology or your book? The teachers need to be an expert. And we're trying to get them to understand you're the expert. We're trying to take more off their plate and focus on 3 things: your standards, the questions you ask, and then how you assess. And if you just focus on those 3 things, it will come to you quicker and be a lot easier. But those veterans who say it's tough on those young people, I don't, what's their definition of it's tough on them? That's what I'm trying to understand. I'm not saying they're wrong for saying that. I just want to know what they mean by that. Like if I say it's hard to go out and work on the farm, I can tell you what's hard because I've worked on the farm. I can give you specific examples, but I can tell you I have to work on the farm, but I learned a better way of doing it. If I cut hay this way on days that I know it's going to be dry for a few days, and I know Mr. Angel can laugh at that, but It's better to cut it then, because when you cut it and it rains, guess what you did? It's more work, right, Mr. Angel? So it's working smarter, not harder, and I think that's what we're trying to do, and I hate to use farming with schooling, but that's about the best way I can approach it. Is that what you wanted to say, Ms. Jones?
Yes, some of the comments they received are from teachers. And the one specifically that I remember is from this building. Two from this building that are new teachers.
But yes, to answer your question, we don't have to go with all those days. I think that was the first that got it started.
Well, and I think to your question, Mr. Warfel, about what do the new teachers need? And I think especially here at the middle and secondary level, just classroom management, professional development, and student intervention support. Because, being at the winter conference and hearing the state superintendent and that whole conference focus was on the reading literacy, and a lot of it does seem focused, all the work that they're doing, they being the state, to pour into that pre-K through third, that's great and wonderful, and I'm wholly supportive of that. But that's going to be, and much like the Dr. Edwards work, I think there's value in it, and we've heard that there's value in it, especially at the elementary school level. But to be able to see the results from that work, it's going to take that time, that 3 to 5 years, to really see that cemented into the kids that are going through that rigor, the teachers who are implementing those standards.
It is. And we've provided professional development with classroom management. When I first came in here, we did that APL training. That fell off the wayside because of some leadership. The other thing we've tried to provide is with like Cindy and Greg and Susan. They do obviously the language arts and the math, but they're also there to help out with some classroom management. We try to provide coaching and mentors to help out with classroom management, because a lot of people say, I'd love to go into teaching, but then they find out kids don't love to be around you necessarily. And I don't care who you are, because I've had kids that didn't love me or like me. It's like, that hurts when that first happens. That hurts. But then you really grow with some skin and go, okay, it's just not me. It's life. Kids are that way, especially middle school. But at the secondary level, what we've tried to do is get highly qualified people. That's the first thing. We've had a lot of void in the highly qualified. So secondary is always a tougher beast, especially when you're looking at physics and calculus and chemistry and those interventions, because we have tried to provide a lot of interventions to help out. But when I first came here 3 years ago, I said it's going to take at least 3 to 5 years to get through this, and you're going to have a storm before we can create a new norm, because the old norm was mediocrity was okay. Everybody's fine, just leave me alone. Well, we've caused a storm, and we're still in the midst of that storm with people giving you guys comments. And I let the board know that. I know you three probably remember when I said it's a storm. We're going to have to go through it. But once we get through that storm, we get a new norm, we'll get to the word perform. And that's the key that I want everybody to keep focusing on, because it's not an overnight thing. It just isn't. It's difficult. Change is difficult.
Yeah, it is.
Real difficult. Yeah.
The classroom management, that's another thing that we've been bombarded with.
And specifically mentioned was what you mentioned, the APL training. I heard very positive comments about the APL training. And
Well, we tried to get it back, but again, I'll say the leadership was supposed to, we'll say, get it lined up. Ms. Jones and I have asked numerous times, and that was in the strategic plan. It said APL training, and that was one that didn't get taken care of. So long story short, I'll say it publicly, that's on me. I'm the superintendent here. So we are working on those things, because that APL is good training. We'd like to get them to come, but when you have good training, guess what happens? It's hard to get them back once they leave. And so we're working towards that goal to get that for our people. But we've also used June Harless on those Saturdays. they provide some things that are not necessarily classroom management or more engagement. Because if kids like the class, boy, things are a lot less hectic in your class. But if your classroom is boring, I can leave. You guys can come and look and leave. Kids can't leave. They have to stay there. And what they'd rather do is be considered mean than dumb. And that's what you get at the secondary level. So I agree with your comments there about
Yeah.
the APL.
That's one of the things, one of the comments I heard was that, if we could provide APL in conjunction with this, they would complement each other.
I agree, and we are, trust me, working on that.
Okay.
It's just this couple's out of New York, and I think they give, I don't want to say more towards that state, but let's be honest, if you don't have to travel as far, West Virginia I know is not far, but my point is there's other states that are interested in their training, but we'll get them back. Don't put a timeline on me just yet on that one, but we'll try to get them back.
So what about maybe talking with Dr. Edwards and see if we can come up with something, a few less days, and see what he's open to, talk to your leadership teams and you all in the central office, see if we can find a happy medium.
You just want to just table this for another one?
Let's postpone it until.
No action then? Okay.
Yeah, we'll do no action and postpone it till July 11th. And if you all have something by July 11th, we can talk about it. If not, we'll postpone it till the second meeting in July.
I'll stay in touch with you, Mr. Angel, because here's what I'm gonna say. I like the idea of July 11th, but you said a word, July.
Yeah.
That's summer.
I know, I know.
When you say try to get them together, it's,
Yeah.
don't take that wrong.
No,
You know?
and that's what I'm saying. We'll put it tentatively for the 11th, but we can always postpone it again.
Okay, that's
So,
fine.
all right, so we'll do no action on that one. All right, old business C, discussion or possible action to approve salary supplements for all specialists.
Did you want to speak on that or not? Well, I didn't know if you need us to speak on that anymore, Mr. Angel, or we just wanted to call that a day on that. I wasn't
Yeah,
sure.
so, again, let's just do a refresher on it. So essentially, we are trying to get all specialists at the same supplement level.
Yes, we're trying to get all specialists above the base level, because some of them are at the base level, some of them are not. This would raise all regular specialists up to that $10 a day with the exception of the special ed, and then the TSS, which, because of the extended contract, he's doing a whole lot more work than just a regular specialist. So that's why there's sort of differentiation there. But this would bring all specialists up above the base pay, because they do have that specialist title.
Do they have any additional certifications or duties above a base? I mean, I know their duties are different because of the job title, but,
I can speak to that.
okay, please.
With the tips, they all have a technology integration specialist endorsement,
Okay,
which was previously provided as really a pretty extensive course work through the State Department of Education. That's actually on their license. And our job description asks for that.
okay, all right, thank you. There's three positions or four?
The tips, there are 3 currently,
And then the TSS, okay.
there's 4 positions total, but 3.
Four, right.
So the only change is happening to the tips and the TIS, right?
That's all this was. Everything else that was discussed previously has been tabled for now. This is just those 2 specific positions.
Which you've already cleaned up with all the rest of them. It's just those specialists were, nothing intended, were left out, if you will. We're just trying to clean it up, that's all.
Do I have a motion?
Well, hang on.
Any questions?
Yeah, so what we're doing is we're bringing the tips up to equal supplement of the other specialists minus the special ed.
It'll be like where Christy Schaefer, I shouldn't say name. But,
Nope.
The elementary, secondary, those people.
And then the TSS is at a different level. How so?
A little different.
Yeah, it's a little bit different, and the differentiation I make is because that position works at all of the schools, whereas the tips, they work specifically where they're assigned. Chad can go in more into what the TSS does specifically, but that position does a lot more than just implementing at the school level.
And I'll say from the certification part, he has an endorsement as well. There's a technology system specialist.
Greg, is that Adam?
It is, I'm sorry. I realize the speaker's back here. Adam was reading my mind anyway. He knew what I was going to ask.
I'll carry it around.
Yeah.
She just wanted to know if it was you, Mr. Campbell.
Oh, okay.
Yes, it is.
Renee, can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
Oh, there you are. The technology system specialist has an endorsement, but we also post that for some, I would call industry recognized credentials, some things that are very unique outside the school system that people in the education side don't have. With programming and the hardware and those kind of things, just for your information.
I'll make a motion that we approve salary supplements for all specialists.
Motion by Mr. McBride to approve salary supplements for all specialists. Now, this is not, should be reworded. It's not all
Yeah.
specialists.
For
it's
these
the
four
four
So
specialists.
the rest of the special, yeah.
How about you
remainder.
I'll let you rephrase that. How's that?
All right, I'll make a motion to approve the salary supplements for the remaining four specialists.
Motion by Mr. McBride. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I'll second.
Mrs. Harvey beats you to it. Mrs. Farley.
Okay.
Motion by Mr. McBride, seconded by Mrs. Harvey, that we approve the salary supplements for the four specialists listed. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? Let the minutes reflect by a 5-0 vote that the salary supplements for the four specialists have been approved. All right, new business, approved purchases over 20,000.
I don't think we have any. I don't recall any, so I think we're good there.
Okay,
Sorry,
nope, that's good.
I had to look at that.
So we'll mark that as
Nothing.
not applicable. Discussion or possible action to approve the following policy.
I think we're good. There's no other things going on with this. I think
Okay.
we're good.
No
And
comments.
That's
James,
what I mean, yeah.
Okay, all right.
make a motion that we approve policy VE6, wellness policies on physical activities and nutrition.
I'll second.
Have a motion by Mrs. Harvey, seconded by Mr. Brogan, that we approve policy VE6, wellness policy on physical activities and nutrition. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, abstaining. Minutes reflect by a 5-0 vote that policy VE6, wellness policy on physical activities and nutrition, has been approved. Item C, under new business, approve the treasurer to have authority to record and submit any necessary budget items and pay bills for year end. Entries and payments are presented to the board at the first regular meeting in July.
This is something that happens every year.
Yeah, that's what, this is standard.
Yeah.
Happens at the last meeting of each year, so.
I'll make one comment.
Yes, ma'am.
I won't physically be at that meeting, but I can do a Teams meeting or something.
Okay.
I'll be at a conference.
Okay.
But I will be available.
We can do Teams or we can call you on your phone, either way. So,
Whatever you want to do,
Yeah.
I just wanted to make that notation.
yeah, it's probably on the beach. Is that a conference at the beach?
I'll finish.
All right. I'll make a motion. We approve the treasurer to have authority to record and submitting the necessary budget items and pay bills for year end.
Second.
Motion by myself, seconded by Mr. McBride, that we approve the treasurer to have authority to record and submitting the necessary budget items and pay bills for year end. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, abstaining, let the minutes reflect by a 5-0 vote that item 10C, approved treasurer have authority to record and submitting the necessary budget items and pay bills for year end has been approved. Item D has been postponed, and that will be placed back on the agenda at a later date to be determined.
Waiting on our turn.
Okay? Item 11, personnel. We have before us resignations. We have 3 of those. We have employment service. We have employment summer professional. We have employment summer service. Let's see. That one for employment summer service is, the name that goes in there is Joanne Hales. And do we have any? We have no one for leave of absence, correct? Okay. So those are the items we have before us for this round of superintendent recommendations for personnel.
I'll make a motion, we approve the superintendent's recommendations.
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Brogan, seconded by Mrs. Harvey, that we approve the personnel recommendations previously mentioned. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstaining? Let the minutes reflect that the superintendent's recommendations for personnel have been approved. We now have before us for personnel, employment professional, principal of Summers County Comprehensive High School.
I'd like to make a motion based on West Virginia Code 6-9A-4 that we go into executive session.
I'll second that.
Motion by Mrs. Harvey, seconded by Mr. Brogan, and according to West Virginia 6-4A personnel, we go into executive session. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstaining? Minutes reflect by a 5-0 vote. We will go into executive session, and the time is 7:38.
Send it to Brett.
All right, so executive session ended at 8:08. We will call this regular session back to order. We have before us the superintendent's recommendation for Summers County Comprehensive High School principal. I have a motion.
I make a motion that we accept the superintendent's recommendation.
Okay, we have a motion by Mrs. Harvey that we accept the superintendent's recommendation.
I'll second.
I'll second.
Now we have a second by Mr. Brogan. Sorry, Renee.
That's okay.
Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Abstaining? Let the minutes reflect by a 5-0 vote that the superintendent's recommendation was approved. Superintendent's report, item 12.
You all should have a handout. You provide that, didn't you, Ms. Jones? Okay. I think Renee's name's actually on there too, of the Summers County School Teacher Leadership Framework. We also have on there National Board Certified, and this is something that we can look at for next fiscal year. But right now, we have 3 teachers who are interested in getting nationally board certified. Currently, we have 1 teacher, Ms. Mills, is certified. So if we're going to have people who are seriously thinking about doing that, we might want to look at a pay scale. Is that what we were talking about at one point in time?
Yeah, if they look at the first page on teacher leader roles, that's how we would like to spend this money. It's to build leadership amongst our teachers and have them in leadership roles. So those are the 6 things that we would like to spend the money on. Number 6 is tuition reimbursement. So that wouldn't actually be a teacher leadership role, but that does help them further grow in their professional development.
And so the reimbursement can come from state funding, right?
The teacher leadership is Step 7 state funded money, and National Board Certified teachers are paid a yearly stipend from the State Department. And we would like to use a portion of this money to match that, hoping to grow our National Board Certified teachers. And attached information so you all know more about the program and what it entails. But we would also use the money to pay our mentor teachers, our professional learning communities, our PLC coordinators. So it's all to build leadership capacity with our teachers.
Okay.
I just wanted to make you aware that we received that funding and how we'd like to use it.
You don't have to do anything with it other than information for right now. But we're looking at that for the following fiscal year as we move forward, right?
It would be this coming school year.
So we'd have to get it board approved.
Right, it's information
Okay.
now for you all to look at.
So,
If it is something that you would want me to pursue, we can put it as an agenda item at the next meeting.
and if not that one, the following one, because we have the whole month of July yet. I mean, we don't have to hurry up and do anything without you guys saying, well, what about this? And we can get you more information to show you what that total would look like if all 4. Yeah, 4. There'd be a total of 4, right?
We have 2 right now. One of the new teachers that just got hired into our county is also board certified.
Oh, and one just left the system.
Right. So
That's
we
right.
We have two, but we have, about 4 that are going to the summer, conferences to learn more about the program. So we're hoping those 4 will actually enroll.
Yeah.
And go through with that.
Well,
That's
informational right now.
I think we definitely need to support those that are going that extra mile.
Yeah.
But if we get a whole bunch of them going that extra mile, that gets scary too.
Well, it's a lot of work, so what happens to a
Yeah.
lot of them is, it's not an easy task, so
There's a reason why there's so few of them.
that's why there is so few, is right. But anyway, it's just food for thought, you guys can chew on it, you got all the paperwork. If you have any questions, you have my email as well as Ms. Jones. We're just trying to, we hear a lot about, within the county and grow your own and that kind of stuff. Well, this is one way to maybe attract people to the county too with that extra pay because you are nationally board certified. So, that's that. The other thing I want to tell you guys is, construction meeting we had today at 2, for this building addition that we have going on. The footers are now starting to get dug and should be poured in this week or next, depending on weather. It looks like they can get moving now with that side of the building because at one point, if you take my hand, it's been told that if you twist the building or it's going to throw off somewhere else in the building because of the angle. They need to get clarification, they being Radford from McKinley and their architects. They got that all taken care of now. Now it's time to dig and get the footers because this side of the building is almost under roof. That doesn't mean completely sealed from the weather, but they're moving pretty quickly and we're still on schedule to be done by the end of March of next year. Having said that, with the construction meeting that we had today, Mr. Metter and I were part of that meeting, and from what we took from that meeting, there's going to be a lot of guys dealing with the electrical and the fire system here. It's going to cause a lot of disruptions, and we think it's best to move summer school out of this building and have a contingency plan to start looking at talking. We'll get that information out to the community in the next couple of days, but since we just found that out today, I need to meet with my team and also, well, Dr. Hunt was just sitting over there. I talked to her earlier. She said that we got a truck of food coming, so now I know that. We'll just truck it to talk it, and then I need to talk to Brian yet with transportation. I don't think the issue will be there so much if we just move it. I think we'll have more complications if we try to have school here with all the alarm system that could go off with that. And there's some flashing lights some days you hear beeping noises, and you got a lot of men and women in here that it's just easier for them to leave the doors propped and keep working and get out of the way. So this will just be part of growth, and we'll just move and let the whole community know we're going to move summer school to Talcott, and we'll just work that way. Plus, I didn't even mention we have to shut water off a day or two. That's still not completely done as well. So it's just probably easier to keep everybody off this campus. But other than that, the construction's going well here. Talcott Elementary, they started taking out windows today on the inside.
Of the gym. Of the gym.
Of the gymnasium, yes. And I took video of that. I'd like to upload it to our app so people can see walking through there. But guys, it's starting to look really, really nice. The construction that's going on at this point in time is more painting. And now they're putting in cabinetry for where the concession area is. And they got the, what are those called, Chad? Dividers or stalls? Where you put them in the bathrooms. Right now, the bathrooms are wide open. Divider, yeah, that's all in, and they're getting ready to put that in. So it's starting to shape up and look like a 1936 retro to 2023 standards when it comes to updating that building. But the windows, when they start coming out and they put up plastic to keep water out until they can actually put those big windows in, it's pretty exciting. And then today, the flooring company was here to see the floor color, to see if they can match it as close to the original as much as they can. And they'll be back in the fall, like September-ish, to finish the floor. But we should be done hopefully by October at the latest, because you have to get occupancy and make sure that the fire marshal's okay with everything. But as far as that's concerned, everything seems to be on schedule with that. We do have 3 people this year doing the summer weed eating and mowing. They're doing a good job keeping up with everything, and eventually it'll look nice and pristine and get it looking like a manicured golf course. But right now, there's just so much work to go on, and we want to make sure for John Henry Days, make sure that yard looks like nice and manicured for their festivities there. So we're moving. That's all I have to really report at this point.
Okay, thank you. Point of privilege. Mrs. Farley, since you're on the phone, we'll start with you if you have anything.
Sure, thanks. I would like to just give a shout out to all the employees that are gearing up for summer school. They're going to give their time and have put their efforts into getting ready for it. I know that it is a job, but also it's a love of children. As a parent who had a teenage son that was bullheaded back in the day and wouldn't do his AP comp work, he was in 11th grade and was not going to be able to graduate if he become a senior, and of course needed it to graduate. He wouldn't get his work done, and despite his parents and teachers' efforts, he had to go to summer school the summer after his junior year. And it just so happened that, and he knew this in advance, the summer school was during the vacation that his parents had made reservations for at Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. So our youngest son got to spend time with Grammy here in Hinton, going to summer school while his whole family was in Tennessee on vacation. And not only was he going to school to be able to recover that credit, but it turned out to be a life experience, because when he came out on the other end of summer school, he had really matured. He had learned a lesson over being lazy and not doing his work in school. And I really contribute that to the teachers, the people that really put forth the effort to spend time with Tucker. And, it took the whole village at summer school. It's the teachers, it's the janitors, it's the cooks, it's the bus drivers, it's the secretaries, it's everybody. And I just appreciate the effort that they put forth for the children of Summers County.
Thank you. Mrs. Harvey?
The last couple meetings, we've had to make some decisions that I don't know if controversial is the right word or not, but they've definitely been decisions that, for me personally, I've pretty close to agonized over, and trying to search to, at the end of the day, do what's best for the kids. I also think throughout this meeting, we've made it known that people have reached out to share their concerns. We've asked for input on certain things in regards to different programs, and I greatly appreciate the feedback that comes from whether it's staff or the community to feel like they can share that concern with us, and that we will take that into consideration and do what's best for the school and for the kids.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Well said. Mr. Brogan?
Well, just a mixed bag of emotions, really. Just go with what Megan said, that we've had feedback on both sides of the coin. So just because a decision may not have been made, please continue to give your feedback. We do value that. And then just one other thing that I just, seem like we offer appreciation to a lot of different groups, but rarely do we offer appreciation to the central office staff. You guys are going to have to be here and right the ship all summer long. And while everybody else is at the beach, just want to let all of you know that you're appreciated.
Yeah, Kenny stole my thunder there.
I'll answer like in school.
I just want to say thank you as well to the central office staff, Mr. Warhol. It's part-time when you're closing out school, I know. And as soon as June ends, you got to start all over. So it's tough to do, and y'all do a great job. So thank you.
And I can't say much else than what's already been said. I appreciate everybody's input. As Mr. Brogan said, a lot of people think, well, a board member, you're only in one meeting every 2 weeks, but my wife will tell you I spend a lot of time fielding calls and reading emails and reading policies and what have you. So, as a team, we have to come together and try to do what's best for our students and our staff. And again, I appreciate everyone, but I do have one point of business I'll bring up, and Mr. Brogan will be happy to hear this. So this came out of the May SESC meeting. Mr. Warhol, you may be able to provide a little more about it so the SESC is one of those entities that we talked about earlier that has the co-op that we can use for different services. And the SESC made a pretty good amount of money this past year. What we were told was that once they reach a certain point of funds in reserve, they are going to start sending refund checks to counties every year based on the usage of the SESC's products. So it will behoove us. It's going to help us out with our purchasing, and it's also going to help us out financially by using those products. And hopefully it's going to make it easier on you all because as Mr. McClure said earlier, the paperwork's already been done. So that was good news that came out of that SESC, and we look forward to working with them. Hats off to Jason Butcher. I think he does a bang-up job with what he does. He's always on top of things that benefit the counties that he supports. So that's all I have. Discussion of next agenda. We have July 5th, but there's not going to be a statutory meeting. So our next meeting, a regularly scheduled meeting, will be July the 11th. And on that meeting, we will, and it's here, let's talk about our work session date at that July 11th meeting. So if we can put that on as one of our agenda items, and then if you guys can take a look, and gals, take a look at your calendars and see, what date we can maybe all try to get together and do a work session date. Any other items for the next agenda?
Have we had all the surveys have now been proposed to us?
Yeah, you've had all three proposed to you.
So, I mean.
The three that
Right, the bid out.
Yeah. Let's put that on the next agenda.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other items? Okay, as always, you can reach out to Mr. Warhol or myself if you have another item you want added to the agenda. Item 15, Mr. McBride.
I make a motion we adjourn. The time is 8:29.
Hey, what about this?